Yeah, here was Greenbrier West AD, Jared Robertson. Jared, feel like we're at a cookout here today in the parking lot because we can't be on the field. They're turfing the stadium field here. Just to talk about the fact that Greenbrier West, you guys are finally getting some turf on your field. I'm sure it's a good thing for the school. What are your thoughts on this turf project?
Well, Greenbrier East has had it for several years, and they need to replace theirs. But our county really took care of both schools. They're getting theirs replaced. We're getting a nice new facility here, and I think it has brought a lot of excitement. I'm sure a lot of vehicles have pulled up the hill here in the last couple weeks, taking a peek at what's going on. But we're excited for it. We're not going to miss the days of November mowing grass and painting lines and trying to patch up mud spots and keep playoff games alive here. It's going to be nice to know we won't have to worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that has been a thing over the past few years. I know with South Harrison coming down, I don't know if you could have got another game in here after that game. Both teams being huge running teams. The field was pretty tore up. How many times do you recall, and I mean you were a player here, playing on a state championship team, how many times do you remember having maybe to move games, playoff games? I know there was a seeding thing at one time too, I believe. Some of the games were moved over to Greenbrier East.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many times we've had to move because of field conditions, but there's been several. There was a few games early on before we redid our bleachers and everything where our field wasn't qualified for playoffs, so we would play at East. That's what happened when I was in school. But several years ago, we came in and put in new bleachers, expanded our seating here, and expanded our restrooms and our facilities. And this is kind of the final piece of the puzzle in a way. I think that if you take all the Class A stadiums across the state, you can put ours up against any of them. We're really proud of it, and I'm excited to see our players get out of here on it and look around and think of what a special day this is for our school.
What is the timetable for getting it done? I know I looked at it, still obviously the field's torn up, but these guys can do miracles with putting this turf down. What's the timeline?
Well, if everything stays on schedule, which so far we're at least pretty close to it, August the 7th was the target date for having everything on the field ready. We're also getting a new track as they're doing this same process too. The track won't have its final finishing at that point. In a perfect world, on August 7th, we can get on the field. The track will be everything done except for the final coat. And then in September, I think it's week 4, we're on the road, and week 5 is our open week. So that's our target date to come in and do the finishing on the track, because you got to stay off of it for several days when you do that. So hopefully the weather will cooperate and we won't, we had a couple little minor snafus already, but nothing that the crews haven't been able to take care of.
Weather-wise? Or?
A little bit of weather, and we actually uncovered, I guess you call it a burn pit on the field when they were digging it out. They came across a bunch of old stumps and debris, and so they had to dig that out and then refill with some of the dirt they pulled off of it. But you look out there now, you can't tell, everything's smooth, and now they're getting everything to grade and putting in the drainage. So it's coming along. We have a meeting in about a week and a half to update us on everything. So hopefully at that point, most of the excavation's finished and they'll be getting ready to actually put in the turf in late July.
Because of the kind of team you guys have had, always seem to have a good running back, always seem to be a team that physically dominates the line of scrimmage. Will any part of you, and you are an assistant coach here and also the athletic director, but any part of you gonna miss playing on grass?
Well, I'm a Virginia Tech guy, and we're still on grass in Blacksburg, so I had to throw that in there for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
In a perfect world, I would rather it be on grass, to be honest. But having coached here for almost a decade for football and knowing the weather that's in southern West Virginia and Charmco every fall, just like our South Harrison last year in the playoffs, and it was a total mud pit. And if we would have been fortunate enough to have a home game the next week, we would have moved to East or somewhere else. It's just hard in this part of the state, especially to keep a field in good condition. And we had a nice crown and I think as good a grass field as there is in the area, but it's still a lot of work, and Not going to miss the fertilizing and the liming and all that stuff that you have to do in the off season.
How do you think the players will adapt?
I think our kids are really looking forward to it. Right now we're on turf infrequently, so we get a chance to play on it. The kids get excited, so hopefully we can keep that same kind of excitement. We've had a lot of years where we were big, strong, physical teams, and if you looked at our team last year, we weren't very big up front. A lot of quickness on defense. I mean, we were really good on defense, but I think it was due to quickness more than size, and I'm really looking forward to see how the turf can really help us the way we're playing right now.
Obviously, you need a head coach. Do you think things might change offensively? Quickness on turf is what you want. So defensively, and the team last year, like you said, was smaller. Do you think the offense will morph? Not that necessarily that has to happen, but it's a lot easier to work on a passing game any day of the week when you got turf. You can't really do it late in the season when the weather's bad if you get rain.
Yeah, we have a small practice field here that we use whenever it was wet to stay off our field, but it's not full size, it's not super flat. It's nice that we had it when we needed it, but as far as kicking game and passing game, it was a nightmare. So it's nice to know that we're going to have that opportunity to come up here and work on our passing game anytime we want.
Not necessarily that it means it's going to change, though, is what you're saying.
Well,
you still, you do need the coach yet to be hired.
I don't want to speak too far in advance without knowing who our boss is going to be. I'd like to think that we're going to be similar to last year. I think we have a great scheme on both sides of the ball. I think offensively we've done a great job of being variable to where, we can line up in the eye and run right at you if we feel like we have that advantage. We can also spread you out and run option, run sweeps, run traps. But every year, I know some people around here think, well, you guys never work on your passing game, but I promise you we do. And I will say this, watching our kids the last couple of weeks, 7-on-7s and our workouts that we've had, both our quarterbacks from last year are back. They've both thrown the ball well. And we got a lot of different receivers, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if we're not throwing the ball a little more next year than we have been.
Is part of that because you have turf and can work on it, you think?
Well, I definitely think it helps. I mean, people think that, you paint the field and it stays there. Well, to paint all those numbers and the hash marks and all that takes a lot of time. So a lot of time you're practicing without a lot of that stuff, that your spacing matters in the passing game. And knowing that you can talk about your receivers line up on the top of the numbers or splitting the numbers in the hash, a lot of those things we're kind of guessing out here on grass without good paint, but now those marks are always going to be there. And I think little things like that will make a difference. And obviously balls aren't going to be muddy, they're not going to be as hard to deal with if you do have rain and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to see how our passing game can get better.
For someone like me, it's easier to stat or chart a game because obviously you can read the yard mark. Sometimes everybody that does stats knows on a field, especially late in the season, you might be guessing a yard here, a yard there. Most people I know do get pretty close to right. But
I've got to give Chris Vaughn, who coached here for several years, Kelly's brother, he's the head of our maintenance crew and our grounds crew. I have to thank him for all the time he's put into this over the years. We took a bunch of pictures at our playoff game because we knew this was a possibility back then of happening. So we got pictures of the last paint job that went into Charmco. But Chris was great to help us out and keep our field, and he took a lot of pride in it. He'd take pictures and check to make sure things were right. So it's nice to have that kind of support around your school and your community.
For you, what is the number one positive of having a turf field?
Never having to worry about moving games. Greenbrier East has been really helpful to us and very open when we need to go over there, and that's great. But you think about your kids have the kind of year that we've been fortunate enough to have here a lot, and you qualify for home playoff games, your kids want to walk out of your locker room onto your field, and it's nice to know that from now on we're not going to have to worry about moving home playoff games somewhere else.
What's the number one negative? If there's got to be something that
well,
like yourself that played on grass doesn't like.
We haven't been the fastest team in the world from time to time, and and some people think that turf gives speed more of an advantage. Maybe there'll be some times that somebody will come in here with a bunch of fast kids that we can't handle, that we'll look around and say, man, maybe we should have them in the mud tonight. But, I think it's, there's been a lot of times where we've had games that we lost here in the mud that we felt like if it was better conditions that we would have won. So you never know. It's game to game and all about matchups. But, we're excited to have it and really looking forward to see how it is when it's finished.
All right, Jared, I appreciate the time, and I know you're going to enjoy this turf.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you coming.